Hey RC fans, today we're going to talk about the Creality Laser Engraver CR-Laser Falcon. Now this device is actually a laser cutter. Yes, it can engrave on just about anything, but it also can cut not only balsa wood, but basswood and other materials, thin plywood. This can definitely work really well when you want to cut out ribs and bulkheads for your RC planes, as well as any other hobby that you'd like to use it for. And today we're going to cover the unboxing, the assembly, and cover multiple ways to create materials. And I'm going to show you through the software, not just putting it together, but how to bring in your plans so that you don't even have to do any drafting. You don't have to be a draftsman to be able to take your aircraft plans, pull in your ribs, pull in your bulkheads, and we'll just use a scanner to scan those in and then bring it into the software, and I'll show you how to do that so we can then print out our one-to-ones directly from the sheets with very little technical expertise required from a drafting side. So stay tuned. And now for the unboxing of our Creality 10-watt laser engraver cutter. This technically really is a laser cutter because you can do some great things with this thing. Now, one thing I would definitely suggest if you get this laser cutter is to also get the air assist unit. It comes in a separate box. I believe it was actually a separate shipment, and this will help to prevent the wood from catching fire while it's working. If you're cutting wood or balsa, it will also help make less black marks as it's cutting through the material. So definitely would recommend getting that. So let's unbox. Okay, so we're going to unpack the air assist unit now. Some hose. So lock screws. Interesting. Another, must be a different laser cover. Different from the one that shipped. Normally, yeah, it's different than the one that ships with this unit. Because we have to add the nozzle for the air attachment. Here's the nozzle. And again, this is definitely something that you want. And from what I've seen is well worth it. This is the little air pump unit. Here is everything unboxed. All of our directions, everything for the air unit. Some sample wood, and very important, our laser safety goggles. So without those, we could have irreparable eye damage if we don't wear those. Very important. Having previously worked for a laser company, I can tell you definitely don't want eye damage from a laser, because sometimes you won't even know it's doing damage. So definitely extremely important to always wear the laser safety goggles. The laser filter, I should say. So here's all of our pieces, and we are ready to start assembling. So I have everything laid out in the manner in which it's going to go together. There's a piece in the front, has a ruler on the side of it. The piece over here also has a ruler going down this side. Focus just right. And the piece has the label here in the back. And then this piece does not, but it has a stop. The stop is going to sit on this side because there's a switch on this arm here, which is going to hit this stop so it knows where the stopping point is. So let's start putting this together. One other note, when this is put together, you'll notice the way how it's sitting, that there's going to be two pieces of belt that's open on the back as I laid this out. So notice the orientation there. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take this piece, put this through the rollers, like so. And what we want to do is take this belt and bring it out from the first roller. Just pull that through gently, roll it over the gear tooth, then back underneath the wheel again. So just going to be just kind of a little loop sticking up and around this piece. And later step, we'll tighten this down. Okay, so I got that on. Just temporarily pulled tight. Then we're going to do the same thing for the other side over here. So now I can see how the belt comes out under this wheel, over the gear, and then back under this wheel, and it still hangs loose in the back. And we've done the exact same thing over here on this side. And we don't want to tighten it up because we have to arrange everything and bring it forward to the stop before we tighten those up on the back. So the next thing we're going to do is put on the front piece. So one nice thing is that all the hardware is the same size for bolting this all together, so there's no concern about mixing up which hardware goes where. So let's go ahead and put this piece on. Okay, so I have the arm moved all the way back till it hits the stop over there. Then I'm going to tighten up both belts, and it will automatically turn the little stepper motor to get both sides aligned when I set this up, so I don't have to like move any gear teeth over here. So let's go ahead and put these two little stops in. So we pull this tight, and so the stops needs to have the little head of the bolt facing upwards so you can tighten it up with the Allen key. And we need to put two of these in here. So make sure you don't tighten these down too much because you don't want to tear up the belt. And the belt should be, when you feel the belt up around the gear, it should be fairly snug. Maybe be able to get a half turn out of it. On both sides should be the same. This one's a little hard to tell, but about a half turn out of each side. And that should be enough tension. So next we're going to put on the back 2 feet. Okay, so now I'm going to bolt on the foot and controller combo right here in the front. This bolt sits out much further than the regular foot does, so it's easy to determine where this is. You can't go wrong. There's only one place where there's a bolt hole that goes out this far. And as always, start these gently by hand or just gently with this piece, the Allen key first, because you don't want to strip anything out. Put one on this side. Should go in real easy. Okay. And I've been leveling this out as best as I can when I attach these, so it's really even across the top. Okay, everything is assembled except for the laser and tying up some wires over here. Well, actually these can't tie out because this has to be able to go all the way back. So actually those don't get tied up, and neither does this set here, because these have to move. So one important thing about leveling is it does have the self-leveling bubble here so that you can see, right away your results in trying to level the unit. But the thing is about the leveling, if you level the table but don't level your work, then the table is not going to be level relative to your work. So if you have a smooth surface like I do, and it's not necessarily level here, level your entire table. Level your entire working surface. Don't level this independent of your work that you're going to place inside, or you're going to have an uneven surface and your laser is not going to engrave or cut evenly. So make sure you level the entire surface together. So now we're going to take a look at installing the laser head. So there's a groove right here that goes on this groove here. So normally what you're going to do is pick up the front of the unit a little bit and slide this onto that groove, and there's two tightening screws over here to tighten it down, to tighten this into place. Then once it's on, you'll take your cover, which has one side has four little magnets, and that just kind of pops right on the bottom. However, in this case, before I do that, and of course there's a connector here that plugs in to control the laser. Now for me, I have the air assist, so I'm going to put on a different cap along with the air assist. So the air assist, I believe, sits like this and has a groove for the air assist to go in. So next we're going to take a look at adding the air assist. So to add the air assist, what you want to do is unscrew the laser lens cover on the bottom by turning it counterclockwise. Remove that, try not to touch anything inside or get dust in there. Then you may have to loosen these two screws and the nozzle here so that this piece can pull off. Be very careful and don't touch down inside, because this also has a protective lens inside of it. So pull this piece out, okay? Then this has threads on it, and you just screw this on clockwise. Be very careful not to cross thread it. Gently tighten that up. Then we want to take the nozzle, put the nozzle back on. And we want to put the nozzle on so that this little piece here, the air piece, comes out over this tag. So just plug this on. Turn that kind of straight up and down. And then tighten these two screws gently to hold everything in place. Now we want to take the magnetic piece here, and we can slide this over, and should hold magnetically right there on the end with our air hose coming out. Again, I would very much recommend this because it will stop your wood from getting burnt and help stop fires. You definitely don't want to leave this unattended while it's running, but you have to be very careful while it's running to use your glasses, because they will filter the laser light and stop you from having eye damage from any stray light. Let's put this onto the unit. So we'll pick the unit up and slide this on the little railing. And I'm just going to kind of pull it up for now. This will be adjusted later depending on which work we start with. Take the little connector, plug this connector in. It has grooves so you know which way the connector plugs in here. Okay. So the basic assembly of the unit is complete. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of plywood that's a little larger than the unit to go underneath the unit in case any light gets through. It doesn't go eating down into my table here. So this looks like it's just under 20.5 inches this way, and the total length is about 23.5. So I'm going to cut a piece of plywood that can go underneath the unit, so you can get an idea what the unit looks like now. So once I get that done, then we can go ahead and start doing some prints. Okay, everything is now together, and then we are ready to start working on our first material. Notice that I put the air hose, it's plugged in down here at the bottom, and comes up. I have a little wire tie here to hold it in place. I'm just going to hang it off the table, and here is our compressor. There's a little wheel over here you use to turn on the amount of air you're going to flow, and all we have to do is align the laser. Now, there's a table that comes with, it's on the card that they give you, the little compact flash card. There's a little table that talks about thicknesses and things, but they also give us this little piece here with thicknesses and materials. It has basswood, 3 different basswood sizes, and it comes with basswood to use to create your first model. Okay, so I'm going to line this and set this up to print the sample drawing that comes with the unit. It's already on the SD card, so I'm going to use that for the very first print. As you've probably seen many others in many different videos for the same laser, they start with that. So I'm going to do the same just to make sure everything is aligned and working properly. So what you want to do then is, this is basswood. Now, anybody who doesn't know what basswood is, basswood is basically a white wood that is really easily finished, real easy to work with. A lot of carpenters really like it. And there's like a whole breed of trees, many different trees that are used to create basswood, but it's not just necessarily one specific type, but they do call it a white wood or basswood. And what I want to do is since my basswood is in here, so I'm going to lift the laser up. Okay, got the laser lifted up and put this little fitting under here, the highest size for this test piece of basswood, and this focuses the laser at the right focal length for cutting. And then I'm going to tighten up these 2 little thumb wheels to hold that in just there. Okay, so now we are ready to print. So the print that I'm going to use is already on the SD card, so I'm going to plug that in, and then we'll show how this gets set up once it receives the print on the SD card. So I'm done with this. I'm just going to hang this right from the front here so I don't lose it. So on the SD card, there are several directories, and one of the directories has a G-code directory that has the G-code print. You know the G-code because it says .G-code on it. And you just copy that to the root of the SD card, root directory of the SD card, and then you plug this in over here. This is the first method for, and it just kind of clicks in. This is the first method of printing because it'll take whatever's in that root, the first file it sees, and that's what it's going to print automatically. Optionally, you can get your own Type-C cable, kind of like what's used with the new phones for USB, and plug it directly into your PC and use your PC to directly control this without having to plug the SD card in. Okay, we're plugged in, ready for centering. Now, one thing I definitely want to stress is put on the laser filter goggles before you do this, just in case the laser turns on, because you don't want irreparable damage done to your eyes. And that's what this is for, is filtering out the laser when you're using it. So now, I'm going to turn this on. Okay, now we should start following a pattern here. I guess we need to push the button once. There we go. That's going to center, or go to the stops, move over, and it should start running the pattern. Notice it's running the pattern. So we want to make sure the wood is centered in that pattern. It looks like we need to come forward just a little bit. So just a hair. That looks about right there. Okay, so now it's running the pattern around the outside edges of the area it's going to print, so we know we're centered. Now, push the button on the front again, one click, and we should start cutting. And there we go, we're cutting. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't turn the air on, so let's turn some air on to make sure we get some nice clean cuts here. Okay, so we should see a difference between the burn marks before and after I turn that on. So that'll be interesting to see. Turn the air on about 50%. Definitely see some burn marks over there. Notice it gets a little better. So definitely the air makes a big difference in whether it leaves burn marks or nice clean cuts. I'm definitely seeing some smoke rising up from this. I think I need even a little bit more air. It does have a little bit of stink to it, so like it says, you want to use it in a well-ventilated area because it is actually burning through the wood. A piece just came right up out of it. So we'll see how this finishes up. Okay, that did not take long at all. When it finished, it moved back here to the home position. And because I had the air blowing, it already blew out a few of the pieces. Let's take a look at what it looks like now. Look at that, just lifts right off the whole shell of the design. And it looks like it did burn down into my plywood a little bit, which I was expecting because I didn't put the little metal piece in there. I need to get one to stop it from burning down into the plywood when I'm cutting things. Look at that. So I have a whole image of the bird there, but check this out. This is basswood. This is not even balsa wood, and it cut through this with ease. Did a really good job. You can definitely see the area where I first started right here when I didn't have the blower on. It's darker. So it definitely makes it look a lot cleaner when you have the air blowing. So the air assist is definitely a necessity for this product. So the next thing I'm going to do is try to print, or I should say etch with the laser, into some leather to create a patch basically out of leather that I can put on a hat for my Georgia's Smoky Mountain RC.com logo. So I've got the logo drawn up. It's a fairly small image. It's drawn up in Photoshop. And I'm going to save this. And then I'll show you how to bring this into the software. So I have the Lightburn software opened. It's on the PC. And just have it open to its standard interface. And I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to grab my little logo JPEG file. And I'm just going to drag it over and just drop it right on here. Okay, and I have this currently set to inches. I want to make sure that this is going to fit the hat. So if I bring it over and let's see. We are in inches. So yeah, that's too big. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to make this smaller. I'm going to make it just less than 4 inches and a little bigger than 3.5. Move it up here. So that's about the right size that I want right there. And then I'm just going to center it on the page. Okay. So there's my image. And then if I go over here, it has the image information, and I'm going to basically just etch this. It's going to take this graphic and just etch it, so everywhere that's not white will get etched into the leather. So my speed is currently set to 100, and max power is 50%. I want to make the speed half that. I want to make that 50. So it's set to 50 millimeters per second. Power, 50% laser power, and I think that should etch into the leather pretty good. So then when I want to do this, I want to put this on my TF card to send straight to the printer. So you go over here to File, and then you say Save G-Code. And I'm just going to save this G-Code. I already have a file here. I'm just going to overwrite that one and hit Save. So now all I have to do is take this G-Code file, stick it on the flash card, plug it into the unit, and then this can be etched into the leather. So let's give that a try next. Okay, I've moved the laser etcher to the garage because this leather is going to stink. I found out by trial and error. So I'm going to plug in my flash card with my G-code on it. Plug that in right there. And power up the unit. Don't forget the safety goggles, the laser filters. Okay, so here's my leather piece. So first thing I have to do is center it. So let me start the centering process. Okay, let's see. That's looking pretty good, keeping in mind that the laser is in the center of the little housing down here, so that's well within. Alright, so let's start the laser cutting process and see how this turns out. Look at all that stinky stuff coming off there. Who has leather stinks? So here's what it looks like after it's been etched into the leather. I think it turned out pretty good for Georgia's Smoky Mountain, RC.com. So I just got to trim around this and sew it to the front of a hat, and I've got a logo on a hat. Very cool. So the next thing I want to use the laser cutter for is to actually cut out a stencil out of some thin cardboard sheet or something that I can use to airbrush my logo onto my airplanes. So I have Photoshop open and I've created this big print here with my logo, and everything's just one solid color because I actually want to make this a cutout. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this and then bring this into the Lightburn software. So I've dragged and dropped my image into the Lightburn software, and I've scaled it to right between 6 and 7 inches, which is how big I want my logo to be. So now I have this image. But now what I want to do is I don't want to etch, or I don't want to engrave the image. I want to actually cut this out to make the stencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, go in here, and I'm going to say trace image. Okay, so that brings up this little window, and everything looks pretty good right where it's at. So I'm just going to say okay, and then I'm going to come up here where it shows the original image and turn this off. So all that leaves is the lines that are going to be etched. And it shows the closed path for everything right here. So that's all there was to that. Now, because I want this to cut, I'm going to go over here, it's online, and then I want to go down here to the settings, and I want to set my speed. Let's see, I'm going to set the initial speed to 300 and laser at 100%. And we'll see how that does first, and then we can come back and make any adjustments if we need to. So now that I've set that up, then all I have to do is go up here and do File, Save G-Code. Then that'll create the file that I then want to put onto my flash drive. Should be the only file in the root directory, so that'll print. And let's go see how this does. Alright, so I'm set up to start printing the real stencil. And I've got this on the lowest laser level here, and I just wiped off the tube because it was kind of dirty from the last etch, and I'm going to tighten these down, and then we're ready to start etching, or actually in this case cutting, hopefully without catching fire. Okay, so now we're all taped down and the center of the laser is over the working area, so we are ready to go ahead and see if we can cut this logo out. Okay, it's finished cutting the logo. I hope it made it all the way through. I did it a single pass, full power. If this didn't work, then I might have to do another pass. But let's see if yeah, that didn't go all the way through. Not only did it not go all the way through, it kind of tore up the material. It really did. Yeah, look at that. It just turned it all into mush. So I don't think this either. I can't use this cardboard because it's really dense cardboard, or I probably need something thinner to make a stencil because this is doing too much damage. Now what I might be able to do is run it faster at a lower power and do like 10 passes or something. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see how I end up doing this. So here we go for try number 2. So this time I'm going to use a thin piece of box that was holding soda cans. And this is much thicker, or much thinner than the last material I used. I'm going to try the exact same settings and let's see what happens. Same issue with a thinner paper or thinner cardboard. It's really burning the areas with the letters a lot, and I don't even know if it went through. So let's pull it apart and see if they at least went through. Alright, so this was a lot closer. It did cut it out. I was able to cut all the way through to cut the stencil, but I think the laser is too high power because all the smaller work you see in the smaller letters, as soon as I touch it with my finger, they kind of disintegrate. So it's burning the paper a little bit too much, but it did cut through the paper, the cardboard for the soda box really well. So I think either I need to make the laser lower power or a lot faster, because I think it's cutting through it fine now. I just need to not burn the paper so much. So a little bit more trial and error. We'll see if we can get this logo set up, and then I can use my little airbrush to airbrush my logo onto all my planes. Okay, we're ready for try number 3. Same material, which is a soda box cardboard for printing out or cutting out our stencil. And I'm ready to go. This time it was the exact same thing, except I went back into Lightburn and I changed the speed from 300 millimeters per minute up to 500 millimeters per minute and changed the laser intensity from 100% to 80%. Hopefully this will give us a good job on this without tearing up the box this time. So let's give it a go. So I think we have a winner. I mean, maybe a tiny more adjustment, but I'm happy with this. I think this will work. This will work for my logo to put on my planes. So did a pretty nice job on this one. I think I probably could have made it, I don't think I would make the laser intensity any less, maybe speed it up just a little bit maybe. But I think the 500 millimeters per second, per minute, and the 80% on the laser intensity seem to be pretty close. Because I got a really good cutout. Even the little plane that came off of it looks pretty neat. This was the plane that cut out from the previous run. Notice there's no propeller and burnt up a little bit. And this is from the current run I just did. So actually the little plane came out even with a little propeller in one piece. So yeah, these settings are pretty good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut some balsa wood. And I'm going to scan in some of these pieces for the ribs and the bulkheads. Just scan in different pieces and bring them into the software and see if we can cut some balsa wood that hopefully will match up with the drawing. So before I start trying to bring these plans into the Lightburn software, something I realized I wasn't thinking about before is this is actually a scale drawing. It is much smaller than the plane itself. So it's enlarged to 250%. So this ought to work out really well, because if I scan this in and then scale it up 250% in the Lightburn software, then that will work out really well for us. Because otherwise, you know, a lot of times what people will do is you'll have a one-to-one of your ribs here, cut them out, and you know, you can use this as a trace area. Problem is, since this is not to scale, that wouldn't work anyway. We'd have to blow these plans up larger, which is kind of hard because this is a big set of plans. So this actually works really well to scan it in and scale it up in the Lightburn software as we're burning out or cutting out the ribs out of the balsa. And this is going to be out of, the ribs themselves are, all ribs says 1/16 thick balsa sheet. So I've got my drawing for the plane, the plans, and the laser in the scanner, and I'm going to scan this in so that I can then bring it into the Lightburn software. So my scan is complete and saved it as a JPEG file. So now I can take this and bring in the parts that I want into the Lightburn software and then scale up to 250%. Just make sure that when you start scanning in documents to bring into Lightburn to laser cut your pieces, that you use the same tools throughout. In other words, use the same scanner, use the same software for the laser burn, everything the same, so as you have to scan different sections of your larger document, that everything will scale the same. So even if everything's off by a slight percentage, hopefully it's all off in the same direction so that everything will fit just fine, because there's going to be some tolerance on the scan. So I took the scan, I cleaned it up with Photoshop a little bit. You could use any paintbrush kind of program to clean it up, and that's about how I've been able to clean it up too. Now what I want to do is increase this to 250% of the original. So all I have to do is go up here and it says 100% and just change this to 250. And now it's much bigger. So now for the next step, what I want to do is I want to right click on the image and I want to go down here and go to trace image. And then if I go here, you can see the little pink lines that kind of follow closely to the jagged edges. And it looks like this is pretty good right where it's at. So I'm going to try to select this, see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to turn off the image. So anything that should be left is a line. Now, notice that there's two sets of lines. And the inner one, I want it cutting all the way to the outside line because it traced both edges of the line, of the cut lines on the actual, plans. So what I want to do, let's see, let's click away. All right, so first thing I have to do is while it's all selected, I need to go and right click and say ungroup. Okay, so this should allow me to select them individually. And I want to select the inside one here and hit delete. Okay, so now I only have just this inside line, and the outside we want to keep the outer line. So I'm going to highlight the inner line. Okay, and say delete. Okay, there is my full line for the rib. And you can see it looks a little bit jagged in some areas. And if you do show points, you can clean up any jagged areas if you're worried about them. So you can see that this rib section, after just a few minutes of effort, actually looks pretty good, pretty straight now. So at this point, I want to set this up to 350 millimeters per inch, or no, sorry, 350 millimeters per minute speed, and a power of 100%. Actually, this is a 16th inch balsa that this is going to be cut out of, so we might not need 100% power. That might kind of burn the balsa. So maybe I'll start about 80, 350 for the speed and 80 for the laser, and see how this does. So you want to remember that you want to go to File and then Save as G-code, and then put in your G-code address where you want to save this, or the path to where you want to save your G-code for the item once it's ready. You need to remember the first step is to line our laser. I'm again going to use the lowest setting before tightening the screws up again. This is a very thin balsa wood. Okay, and then I'm going to tape this down once I center it, and then start cutting. So I've got my balsa set up coming out this way because I don't want to waste too much of the material. I want to cut it just right off the end so I can cut the rest of my ribs as I get those ready. So we are now ready to start cutting. Hopefully the settings will be good. Shouldn't take long because this is a fairly small piece. So hopefully I have my settings good enough to cut all the way through and not to cause too much damage to the surrounding edges. And I didn't have my air on, so I just turned my air on. So some of it may look a little cleaner than others since I just turned that air assist on. Be interesting to see the difference between the air assist areas and the other areas. Looks like it's about done. Okay. Oh wow, you can definitely see the difference between the air assist areas. See how it looks a lot darker in the areas that the air assist wasn't on. And I turned it on about here. Look how clean that line looks. Definitely the air assist is it's well worth its time. But there's the first rib. Now let's see if it went all the way through to cut all the way through the wood in one pass. So look at that. It did a fantastic job. So there's my first rib piece done and cut out at 250% scale from the drawing that I had. So definitely would have been better with the air assist, but I think those settings are great. And the nice thing is, once you create the G-code files, the G-code files has a text statement in it that tells you what your speed and your laser intensity was. So when you want to cut out that same material, if you're happy with it from a previous plane or previous parts of the plane that you cut out, you can always go back and look at those files to see what those settings were so that you can duplicate them. So I'm ready to do the rest of my ribs. We won't cover that in this video. That'll be another build video for that aircraft from the plans. But it does work. Cuts out from the balsa wood quite well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Georgia's Smoky Mountain RC. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if you like this video and you want to see some more laser cutter videos and other things, you might want to check out our website to see our latest news. And of course, it is same as our logo, gsm-rc.com. And that'll point you right back also to our YouTube videos. So check us out.